Jackson, and we talk about a tough tackle in the open field. Look at
Kevin Byard. He's the one that's going to come up and have to make the play.
In illness, here's the Cooper sack seconds ago.
An elite playmaker.
Makes one miss there, and then
Penalty has declined. Third down. Jackson was limping.
It is almost impossible to appreciate all that Lamar Jackson has brought to the game of football and the Baltimore Ravens. But just for a minute, we are going to delve into his career and try to determine if the Baltimore Ravens failed Lamar Jackson. Or could it be that Lamar just has not been at his best in the postseason when it matters the most? After taking in what I'm about to tell you, let me know what it is that you believe. Lamar Jackson has dominated the NFL since he entered the league in 2018. In his 7 NFL seasons, he has been one of the best quarterbacks. No, one of the best players that they have to offer in the game today. He has broken countless records, won many awards. He is a 2-time MVP to be exact, a unanimous MVP in 2019, the second of its kind, and he won another one in 2023. And it should have been a third MVP in 2024, but it just didn't happen. And he broke so many records during that season. But noticeably, there is a huge gap in analyzing his playoff success through the first 7 years of his career. Why is this? You can see that the talent is there. You see Lamar has progressed as a passer each and every season, when he has been questioned to even play the quarterback position in the first place. What went wrong? Could it be that he shrinks when the lights are the brightest? Should Lamar be blamed for why they are not reaching the Super Bowl? What part does the organization play with the lack of playoff success and the lack of wins with arguably the best quarterback in the game today? Now, as Lamar enters his prime, should Lamar be pinned for failure, or should the Ravens organization get the lion's share of the blame? The Baltimore Ravens won a Super Bowl in 2012, and after that, they dismantled the team, letting go of vocal veterans that helped police the locker room. Once this happened, Coach Harbaugh had complete control to configure this team in the mold and the way that he wanted. And before Baltimore drafted Lamar Jackson in 2018, the Ravens sported a .500 record. They missed on draft picks, and injuries derailed this team for that period, but then
Lamar Jackson!
Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson!
He is Houdini!
over the years, the Ravens have missed that mark when it comes to the draft and getting game-changing players for Lamar Jackson to grow with, still holding on to the philosophy of amassing all the defensive players that they can and building this team through defense. Even though it was the offensive change that finally got the Ravens back to the mountaintop in 2012. I am not even sure that the Ravens knew what they had when they drafted Lamar. If you forgot, Baltimore drafted a 25-year-old tight end and had to trade back into the first round to get Lamar. Thank you, Philadelphia. Appreciate that. The Ravens were lucky that other quarterback-needy teams didn't take him first, but the team had the future in their hands whether they knew it or not. The plan for Lamar's rookie season was for him to sit behind incumbent Joe Flacco and learn the NFL game. Also, this roster was constructed for the talent of Flacco, not a dual-threat quarterback like Lamar. In Lamar Jackson's rookie season, Flacco and the Ravens struggled out the gate, going 4-5 and putting John Harbaugh's job on the hot seat, not having the same or similar amount of success since winning the Super Bowl 6 years prior. Then it happened. A mysterious shoulder injury would sideline Joe Flacco for the rest of the regular season and enter Lamar Jackson. Lamar would end up leading the Ravens to a 6-1 record, only losing to what should have been the Super Bowl-bound Kansas City Chiefs and league MVP Patrick Mahomes. With no expectations of starting, Lamar went on to pass for 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns, while rushing for 695 yards and another 5 scores. In a Week 16 matchup with the Los Angeles Chargers, the Ravens won this game, but this game would be pivotal for the playoffs and seemed to start a trend during the Lamar Jackson era. Baltimore ended up winning the division and would go on to host a wildcard game versus these same Chargers. Now, the thing that stood out in this game was that the Chargers had adjusted from the first matchup, changing their personnel and putting more speed on the field. The Ravens tried to do the same thing and had the same game plan from the first time, and this would lead to them losing the first playoff game with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Now, in 2019, in Lamar's sophomore season, he put on a performance like no other in the history of the NFL. With this offense more geared to what the Ravens thought than what actually Lamar's skill set was, they moved on from offensive coordinator Marty Morningwig and promoted tight ends coach Greg Roman. Roman had previously coached Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco. Yes, the same Colin Kaepernick who in his first postseason start versus the Green Bay Packers threw for 263 yards and 2 touchdowns, but more impressively ran for another 181 yards, which is a postseason record for a quarterback, and 2 more scores. This to me is the reason they brought him to Baltimore, to get the most out of what they thought was a scrambling QB. Now that offseason, the Ravens moved on from Super Bowl winning quarterback Joe Flacco. They let go wide receiver John Brown and Michael Crabtree. The Ravens ended up adding running back Mark Ingram, quarterback Robert Griffin III, and for the defense, they added safety Earl Thomas. In the draft, the Ravens added first-round pick wide receiver Hollywood Marquise Brown, wide receiver Miles Boykin, running back Justice Hill, and guard Ben Powers. Baltimore knew that it had something special in Lamar, but they did not know how special. In Jackson's first game as a full-time starter in the NFL, he went 17 for 20 for 324 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. In the game, he only rushed 3 times for 6 yards and didn't even play the entire game. This would be a theme for the 2019 season as Lamar and the Ravens just pummeled their opponents. With a rookie wide receiver coming off of injury, he led the group with only 584 yards. Lamar still led the league in touchdown passes with 36, while attempting the least number of passes during the season and sitting out the last game. He also led the team with 1,206 yards rushing, a rushing record for quarterbacks. With 43 total touchdowns and Lamar leading the Ravens to 12 straight wins, he became only the second unanimous MVP in league history, joining Tom Brady. With Lamar and Baltimore dominating the league, the Ravens were the favorites to win the Super Bowl. They were only 3 games away from Baltimore's 3rd championship, and with the way they dominated the best teams in the league, there was no way that they could lose, right? Wrong. The Ravens entered the 2019 matchup versus the 6th seed Tennessee Titans as a heavy favorite. All this team had to do was stick to the formula that got them to the best record in the league. But an early turnover and the team's inability to convert several 4th downs doomed them. The defense allowed Derrick Henry to run for 195 yards and even pass for a touchdown. But what hurt the most was this receiving corps' butterfingers and allergies to catching the ball outside of Hollywood Brown. Seth Roberts dropped a short touchdown early in the second quarter that would have closed the gap to 14-7, but instead the Ravens had to punt. What may be even worse is the fact that a team that ran for almost 3,300 yards ran their running backs a grand total of 9 times the whole game. And I know that Mark Ingram was injured, but you still had a healthy Gus Edwards to run the rock. He already had 3 runs for 20 yards and a long of 19. But this new trend will doom the Ravens for years to come. And even with Lamar putting up 508 yards of total offense, this game was not even as close as the score. So, year 2 of the Lamar Jackson experience, and the Baltimore Ravens are now 0-2 in the playoffs. No one expected this from the Ravens, and even more so, no one expected this from Lamar. If there were any season to decide to build this team around him, it would have surely been for the 2020 season. We had just witnessed history and what Lamar did with the bare minimum at the skill positions. Just imagine how much better would he be with better O-line play and a stud number 1 receiver to go along with a healthy Hollywood Brown in year 2. A bona fide franchise QB under a rookie deal. The Ravens would surely build this team around the former first-round pick. Nah. They would not. The 2020 season was one of 2 seasons that defined the Lamar Jackson era in Baltimore to me. LJ, coming off of a unanimous MVP, was clearly going to get the weapons upgrade to take this team to new heights. But alas, that did not happen. See, the Baltimore Ravens foundationally are built on defense. This is how this team won its first Super Bowl, and it has been this team's identity primarily since its inception. But the landscape of the NFL was changing, and the Ravens decided to zag when other teams zigged. The team lost a lot of key pieces after the 2019 season, including an important piece in guard Marshall Yanda, who anchored this O-line. They also lost swingman James Hurst and even tight end Hayden Hurst. I guess this was a bad time to be named Hurst on this team. But losing Yanda hurt, but losing Hayden caused a bit of a problem because those two tight end sets with Mark Andrews gave other teams fits. To replace them, the team brought in guard DJ Fluker and wide receiver Dez Bryant. Yes, that Dez Bryant that had not played football for 2 years because of injury. And no, the Ravens thought it was more important once again to bolster a defense that got demoralized by Derrick Henry in the playoffs. So the Ravens signed Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe to neutralize Henry's running. Clearly needing a replacement for Marshall Yanda and another receiving threat, the Ravens drafted linebacker Patrick Queen in the first round of the draft to man the middle of this defense. In the second round of the draft, the pick they got for trading Hayden Hurst to the Falcons, the Ravens selected running back J.K. Dobbins to go along with Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards. They also drafted wide receiver Devin Duvernay, tackle Tyree Phillips, guard Ben Bredesen, and wide receiver James Prochet. Not the players you would have thought that a team would bring in for an MVP level QB. But the Ravens ended up going 11-5, second in the AFC North, with Lamar passing for 2,757 yards and 26 touchdowns. This is what happens when you take away weapons and you take away protection. The 2020 playoffs started in the wildcard round with the Ravens taking on a familiar foe. The Ravens would take on the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee and try to avenge the playoff loss from the year before. In the beginning, the Ravens struggled to get anything going until Lamar scored on an amazing run with about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left before the half. The Ravens ended up winning this game and moved on to the divisional round, giving Lamar Jackson his first playoff career win. In the second round of the playoffs, Lamar would go up against his 2018 draft mate Josh Allen. Allen himself turned around the Bills and was becoming one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Now this game was a defensive battle early, with both teams not scoring much. But then in the third quarter, Lamar threw an interception that was returned for a touchdown, and the Ravens never recovered. But what had happened was, the play before, the Ravens were about to tie the game, but running back J.K. Dobbins missed the block and the pass fell incomplete. Lamar later was then knocked out of the game on an errant snap, and the Ravens lost the game 17-3. The porous offensive line showed its ugly face once again. And again, when the Ravens played in a game with the weather not being ideal, the team that wants to be the most dominant run team in NFL history ran the ball 20 times with its running backs, 10 each by J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, in a game where there was swirling winds. This is a problem. This team was built for bad weather games, but when we get into the postseason and we get into these type incidents, the Ravens decide to chuck their identity and go with something completely different. Now, after this loss, Lamar and the Ravens are now 1-3 in the playoffs during the Lamar Jackson era. With the Ravens trying to build off of 3 straight years of making the playoffs, and with the struggles of protecting Lamar in the playoffs, you would think that they would do a better job of bringing in O-line help. But no. What they did should be borderline criminal. Not having the strongest offensive line already, Baltimore traded its best one in tackle Orlando Brown Jr. and moved on from guard DJ Fluker and center Matt Skura. The Ravens upgraded the guard position by signing Kevin Zeitler. I give them that. But cheaply whiffed by signing Alejandro Villanueva from the rival Pittsburgh Steelers, a right tackle they tried to make a left tackle, with Ronnie Stanley still having injury concerns. I still don't understand why they traded Orlando Brown Jr. plus a second round pick when Brown took over for Stanley and made the Pro Bowl. He still had a year left on his contract, and so if he wanted to be traded, he had no leverage in this situation. But the Ravens moved on from him and brought in other guys to try to fill that void. They also signed and tried out Mr. Glass, tackle Juwan James, who didn't even last one drive during the season in the opening game. In the draft, With many expecting the Ravens to bring in some kind of line depth, they drafted wide receiver Rashad Bateman in the first round. But it was the next move that had some scratching their heads, especially me. The Ravens traded Orlando Brown Jr. and a second-round pick to the Kansas City Chiefs for their first-round pick. So the prevailing thought was that with the second first-round pick, the Ravens were going to bring somebody in to help protect Lamar Jackson, knowing that they had a line that already had a lack of talent, and they traded their best offensive lineman. But what did the Ravens end up doing? They ended up using that pick on outside linebacker Odafe Oweh out of Penn State. He was a raw prospect that had 0 sacks in his last year in college. 0. They used a third-round pick on guard Ben Cleveland because of his size, and he became a pick that never really panned out. Then in the 5th round, the Ravens selected a fullback, even though they had Pat Ricard on the roster. The Ravens lost both running backs, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, for the season, and they moved on from Mark Ingram. So the Ravens had to scramble to do something, bringing in running back Devontae Freeman, Latavius Murray, and running back Le'Veon Bell. These are not the players that you would think of for a team that wants to be run dominant, for a team that wants to run through the record books of history. These are not the names that you would have penned out to start for this team, even after losing your starters. So now we give Lamar a lack of true weapons, decent weapons, but not really over the top. And also you give him an offensive line that was just pieced together for an MVP quarterback. You piecemeal together an offensive line and just hope and pray that they can protect him throughout the season. And of course, behind this inept offensive line, Lamar would go on to throw a career-high 13 interceptions and be sacked a career-high 38 times. And this number stands out because it is truly outrageous that this team gave up the number of sacks that it did because Lamar got hurt in the first half of the 13th game versus the Cleveland Browns. So he had a career high in sacks and did not even play a full season. The Ravens would end up going 8-9, the first and only losing season in the Lamar Jackson era. You would have thought that transgressions of the past season that the Ravens would finally have learned their lesson. They did not. Starting left tackle Ronnie Stanley had only played 7 games the 2 seasons prior combined, but Baltimore did nothing to bring in any suitable replacements just in case he was not healthy. They did sign offensive tackle Morgan Moses to play right tackle and maybe in a pinch play on the left side. But this is not the answer. This is not the player that you bring in to protect the blind side of your franchise quarterback. They also lost their starting center. So what do the Baltimore Ravens do? They decide to go out and sign a $70 million safety. Then they also go out and add cheap labor like running back Kenyon Drake, Demarcus Robinson, Andy Isabella, and the corpse of Deshaun Jackson. So you would think that the 2022 draft, packed with tons of talent, the Ravens would give Lamar everything that he needed to be successful during the season, or maybe at least some adequate type protection. But no, they did not. They took safety Kyle Hamilton at 14 after paying $70 million for Marcus Williams. Then they traded Hollywood Brown for a first-round pick and drafted center Tyler Linderbaum. With their second-round pick, they chose injured linebacker David Ojabo, knowing that he would not play at all the entire season. This is how you help out your QB? This is how you build your team around the best player in the league, around the best player on your team? You give him an injured player that is not going to play and may not even be ready for the next season. But this is something that the Ravens do, being that they don't really care about Lamar Jackson. And no matter how you feel about him, wide receiver George Pickens was still on the board. A wide receiver with attitude that loved to block. Now, the last time that I checked, the Baltimore Ravens had love for their receivers that love to block in the run game. But to give them some credit, the Ravens did leave the draft with tight end Isaiah Likely, who after the 2025 season could become the heir apparent to Mark Andrews. And as expected, Lamar got used and abused for another season, ending his year early for the second straight season behind a bad offensive line.
Oh no! We suck again!
But luckily, Lamar led the team to an 8-4 record and the rest of the schedule was fairly easy. The Baltimore Ravens ended up making the playoffs but lost to divisional rival Cincinnati Bengals, with the Ravens refusing to run the ball in the playoffs as usual, having the ball at the 2-yard line instead of running your star running back or a 230-pound bruiser. The Ravens tried to be cute and do a QB sneak from the 2-yard line. The fucking 2-yard line, especially with as bad as this O-line has been. Even running back J.K. Dobbins voices frustration after the game, asking why am I only running the ball under 15 times.
I should be the guy. I'm tired of holding that back. I'm tired of that. 12, it's the playoffs. Yeah, I did. I'm tired of that. I'm a playmaker. I'm a guy that my teammates feed off me when I'm on the field. I should be out there all the time.
With Lamar out offensively, I am clearly your best player, but yet and still you put the ball in others' hands. But you have to give the Ravens respect. Without Lamar Jackson, the Ravens did put up a valiant effort in the loss. Now entering 2023, this is the second year that defined the Lamar Jackson era in Baltimore to me. And also, this is the year that put the stamp on me believing that the Ravens don't really care for Lamar Jackson like they say that they do. Lamar is the first true franchise quarterback in the modern era that had to fight to get the contract that he deserved from the team that drafted him. Lamar has been the team's best quarterback and the team's best running back since he entered the league. He had to request a trade, sadly, before the team decided to pay him, while others like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love get record-setting extensions years before their contracts were set to expire. They love to bring up Lamar's playoff record, but what has Lawrence done in the playoffs? Herbert, with all of his gifts, he has 0 playoff wins to his name. And Jordan Love had only started 1 season before becoming the highest paid player in NFL history. And my God, Kirk Cousins was still getting paid. But Lamar had to get into a back and forth with the Ravens to get what he truly deserved. Now, Baltimore did move on from offensive coordinator Greg Roman, finally, and brought in Todd Monken, hoping to upgrade a passing game that had stalled under Roman. Maybe they finally realized that Lamar could actually pass the ball. The Ravens then overpaid for ligamentless Odell Beckham Jr., brought in Ronnie Garvin Hands of Stone Nelson Aguilar, and signed guard John Simpson after losing starting guard Ben Powers. The Ravens love guys named Ben for some reason. It's weird too. Now, you would think that with the Ravens investing all this money into Lamar, they would go and bring in guys to protect him, keep him healthy, keep him upright. And once again, they did not. They got 13 games out of Ronnie Stanley, and the rest of this line was serviceable, but nothing to the level of where they should have been, given that they paid Lamar so much money and their future was tied to him. Now, when it came to the 2023 draft, it was nothing really special. They did get Zay Flowers, who became the first drafted Baltimore Ravens wide receiver to make a Pro Bowl as a wide receiver. And he looks to be Lamar's favorite target going forward, and he was an overall solid pick. But as far as getting Lamar some protection, they did nothing. And you can miss me with the, oh, we got Andrew Voorhees in the 7th round. We can hope and pray that he turns out to be the player that many of us expect him to be, but we really do not know. The Ravens could have and should have done better when it came to protecting Lamar Jackson. With protection issues aside, the Ravens steamrolled through the 2023 season, beating the best teams that the NFL had to offer. They ended the season with the defense ranked #1 in most major categories, and Lamar Jackson passed for a career-high 3,678 yards and 27 touchdowns. Once again, the Ravens were the best team in the league, and they were the favorites to once again win the Super Bowl. Baltimore was the league's best, and the villain Kansas City Chiefs finally looked vulnerable, but it didn't matter. Baltimore had won 6 straight games before resting their starters in the season finale. And with this, the question again of rest versus rust was in play. But in the first round matchup versus the Houston Texans, the Baltimore Ravens came out sluggish and the game was tied 10-10 at the half. Lamar had to speak up and the Ravens came out and decided to play inspiring football, and in this game after halftime, the Baltimore Ravens dominated, which led to the Ravens winning 34-10. and it gave them a date in the AFC Championship game versus those hated Kansas City Chiefs. Lamar in this game passed for 152 yards and ran for another 100 with 4 total touchdowns. And it was Lamar's second half dominance that propelled him to the second playoff win in his career. Then moving on to the next week, the Ravens entered the championship game knowing they were 1 game away from the Super Bowl. Finally, the Ravens were on the doorstep and we had a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
But the Kansas City Chiefs scored first, and then Lamar Jackson threw a 30-yard pass to Zay Flowers to tie the game. This O-line struggled to control this dominating Kansas City defense, and they went down into the half 14-7. Lamar and the Ravens mounted a comeback, but turnovers would ultimately do them in. The Ravens lost the game 17-10 with undisciplined play and turnovers sealing their fate. Zay Flowers fumbled at the goal line, and Lamar Jackson's boneheaded play to throw into triple coverage killed any kind of chance. But once again, more importantly, the Ravens ran their running backs a grand total of 6 times the entire game. What is more perplexing is that the week prior, the Buffalo Bills ran for 182 yards versus this same Kansas City Chiefs team. So now we have 5 years of the same exact thing.
I'd like to answer it, but what can I say? I don't know. We tried to run the game plan that we thought was best against their defense, and they did a good job with what they were doing. I thought they played really well, especially up front. Trenches on both sides, they played extremely well.
16 rushing attempts is definitely not what you guys normally do.
It was kind of that kind of a game, I'd say. That's the way it worked out, the game, kind of the way the game went.
16 rushing attempts from Derrick Henry. Do you feel that you could have utilized him a little bit?
No, I don't second guess any of that. We did what we tried to do to win the game. Anybody else?
The Ravens get into the playoffs and change their identity. Coach Harbaugh never has an explanation as to why they didn't run the ball, but during the regular season, he talks about wanting to be the best running team of all time. You want to be the best of all time, yet you bring in just anyone at the running back position and go cheap on the offensive line. Somebody, anybody, please make this make sense to me. But the Ravens will keep investing into a defense that holds some of the best QBs in the league below their averages during the playoffs. And now Lamar and the Ravens sit at 2-4 during the playoffs. The 2024 season epitomizes to me the Ravens' approach to offense around Lamar Jackson. They giveth and they taketh away. Fresh off an AFC Championship game appearance, it was clear that the Ravens needed to change their approach on offense in the playoffs and bring in more talent to block for Lamar. Finally, the Ravens brought in some talents befitting playing beside Lamar Jackson. The Ravens signed running back Derrick Henry after failing to trade for him the season before. But it was the next decision that made me lose my shit. The Ravens let guard Kevin Zeitler go in free agency, and they also let John Simpson leave. Then turned around and traded starting tackle Morgan Moses to the Jets. And I understand that the Ravens were wanting to get players that fit the scheme that they wanted to do, but they didn't, to me, bring in suitable replacements for the guys that they let go. That meant that Baltimore would go into the season with 3/5 of its starting O-line being brand new. Even General Manager Eric DeCosta said that they would be good the next season.
Excited for the future. We may have a couple of hiccups along the way, but I think we've started to build from the bottom up, and I think a year from now we'll be in a great place.
Did I miss something? Did this team not just get 1 game away from playing in the Super Bowl? And now they are going to experiment with possibly the most important position group on the field. This is why we say they aren't serious about Lamar Jackson. And with all of these losses, the Ravens went into the 2024 draft and selected, yeah, you guessed it, a defender, taking cornerback Nate Wiggins. I think that Wiggins will be a star, but you have 3 positions of need on the offensive line, and this is what we do. The Ravens did end up taking tackle Roger Rosengarten in the 2nd round, and he looks to be a stud. But that was it for the O-line as far as helping this line be better. The Ravens decided to take a chance on a 7th round pick that missed his entire rookie season with injury. They converted a tackle to play guard for the first time in the NFL. And whether this experiment works out or not, why would you even play in Lamar's face like that? You are risking this team's futures on ifs and maybes. but Lamar and Derek's talents outweighed what the Ravens failed to do for them. Henry ended up running for over 1,900 yards, and Lamar Jackson went nuclear.
Good protection, aired out, Bateman downfield, and he... 3rd and 8. Jackson going end zone, it is caught! Pressure. Wide open, touchdown!
He threw for a career-high 4,172 yards with 41 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. He also ran for over 900 yards, making him the first quarterback to ever pass for 4,000 yards and run for 900. He also became the first quarterback to have 40-plus passing touchdowns and less than 5 interceptions. Lamar Jackson set numerous records in 2024, putting to bed once and for all that he is a QB. Lamar led the Ravens out of an 0-2 hole to begin the season while the defense struggled. Every single thing that has been allocated to this defense, and it is Lamar Jackson with less talent to be the one that had to bring this team back from the brink of defeat, back from a losing season, back from missing the playoffs. Everything the team put into this defense, and it failed us early on. And only because Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson willed it, the Ravens dug themselves out and went on a win streak. And this is why I do not understand why this team does the bare minimum around Lamar Jackson, but will give everything it has to the other side of the ball. The more the defense struggles, the more that they add to it. The more that the offense struggles, the more that they add to the defense. It is crazy to me how this team year after year does the exact same thing season after season. Baltimore ended up finishing the season 12-5 and won the AFC North for the 2nd straight year. They entered the postseason as the 3rd seed and faced the Pittsburgh Steelers for the 3rd time that season. Lamar and the Ravens easily dispatched the Steelers and would move on to face a familiar foe in the divisional round, Josh Allen and the now hated Buffalo Bills. The Ravens entered this game with confidence, already having beat the Bills earlier that season. Baltimore scored first, but 2 turnovers by Lamar Jackson had the Ravens down 21-10 at the half. Lamar Jackson led a comeback in the second half, but a fumble by Mark Andrews and more suspect play calling at the goal line had the Ravens down 27-19 with 3 minutes and 29 seconds left in the game. Already missing Zay Flowers, who was injured during the regular season, and Rashad Bateman having left the game with injury, Lamar Jackson had to put on his cape once again. So with a bunch of backups, Lamar led the Ravens on an 88-yard drive for a touchdown and the possible game-tying 2-point conversion. But then, as we all know, Mark Andrews dropped the ball at the goal line and the Bills ran out the clock for the win. The Ravens had so many opportunities to win this game, but turnovers and questionable decisions doomed this team. With the past playoff failures, how do you only run Derrick Henry 16 times? How do you not run him 4 straight times at the goal line? Now, I know that the line was getting bullied by a smaller Bills defense, but how many games have we seen a team stuff Henry for most of the game, then he breaks one. He hits that 60, 70, 80-yard run. And the decision with goal to go to attempt a pass to Ronnie Stanley is just the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. A pass to Ronnie Stanley of all people. Then trying the same 2-point conversion that has not been successful in at least 2 other previous games. Lamar and the Ravens now sit with a playoff record of 3-5. And I know in the comment section, I know people are going to say it, we all know that Lamar has to play better in the postseason. But he is the only one that really gives this team a chance to win. And overall, the defense plays well, but it doesn't create turnovers. They have created 2 to be exact in the Lamar Jackson-led playoff games. But the offensive weapons and decisions to get away from what has made this team successful are the biggest culprits. So now here we are entering the 2025 season, and the Baltimore Ravens once again decided to bolster this defense and leave the offense to its own devices. Even after losing one of its starting guards, the Ravens made an effort to make the defense better and hope that Lamar can keep being Lamar and do more with less. Yes, They added an older DeAndre Hopkins and took some swings in the draft to bolster the O-line, but have they really done enough offensively to give Lamar his best chance of succeeding? So the question still remains, have the Baltimore Ravens failed Lamar Jackson? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Is it a combination of both? Is it Lamar? Is it the organization? What has gone wrong that this team can have the most talented player in the NFL but fail season in and season out? And before you make your decision, here is a list of what the Ravens have done offensively and defensively during the Lamar Jackson era. Hey, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you want me to make a video about. I'm trying to do more things than just the regular update videos. I'm trying to delve deep into certain topics, certain issues. So let me know what you guys want me to make a video about, and I will do my best to get it done. And to also, before we go, answer the question, if you ask me, the Ravens organization has totally failed Lamar Jackson. They have let him down in so many ways and continue to let him down. The truth is the truth.
Help me!